And what are the simplest ways? So there's so many. When I first started thinking about this, I thought, what can we share in 15 or 20 minutes, have a discussion in an hour, and it not be overwhelming? And so this is a topic that I have been personally engaged in, I would say my entire life of about 30 years. And I'm going to show you some slides and stories, particularly as I was teaching art or drama and what I learned from those experiences. And so then we'll go on. So when you look at this picture, I'm wondering what the first word maybe comes to mind. When I see this, I just think movement, right? So again, in that slide before was fostering movement in non-linear ways. This is, to me, is fostering movement as a group. And there's great games you can play with drama is where you move around in space and you move at a speed of 1. And then you teach to not touch, to move in the space with equal distance around each other. And I've done this, it's actually a theater activity that's inspired by the arts of, it's been too long, in Italy from the 1600s. But the idea is actors had to train themselves to move their energy from a level 1, a level 2, all the way up to a level 6 in space in a safe way. And when you train students to do that, you really free up what can happen in space. So if this is something that is interesting to you, I really love to teach this activity. For anyone who is having challenges with discipline in the classroom, as they allow creativity, or nurture creativity, I have found that understanding the use of space, being able to accelerate it and then go back down, really it's empowering for the students, and then it's also empowering for the whole class. So there's a quote that I wrote myself. I thought I might as well, at my age now, I get to make my own quotes. And so this is a quote that I presented at a Maze conference in Italy years ago. And in 1998, I started a charter school that was called the Renaissance Charter School. And the idea was, if you can imagine the school of your dreams, embedding creativity into everything, that's what I was able to create. Unfortunately, it only happened for a year, but the foundation of it was based on 5-6 years of intensive research, visiting other schools in the United States, and trying to understand what are the best methods we can use in all subjects, embedding the arts into all subjects. So if you look at this quote down at the bottom, this quote was in my math textbook at the time. I was teaching middle school math when I found this quote, and it really just spoke to my soul. And so I actually, at the time, I had my math students who were remedial students, and I asked them to create a dance with math. And we got up on the desks and we started making a rap that was, and we said, perimeter, add the sides, area, multiply. And so again, that kind of just connects with this idea of movement and creativity. How can we do that? And of course, if we link music with it, it's even more playful and fun. And if we can use student music, it's great. This little boy in the orange here is a Sikh, who was Sikh, and he always had long hair, but he was one of my favorite students. Interesting that we have two Indian colleagues on today. In Zambia, 40% of the population was Indian, and every day after class, he used to say, "Miss, thank you for this class today." So this is a drama class, so that's a little unfair. But you can see that I also took this approach in a math class. Okay. So another idea I want to share with you is that I believe at the core of fostering creativity is giving students choice and voice in what they do. And so in young children, that looks like offering centers, maybe, giving choices that work with you as the leader of the classroom. But then voice is really exploring ways that they can contribute topics that are related to them. And again, in the theater experiences for me, I loved giving students prompts to write about and then to write their own plays and create their own plays together. And so what is their idea of freedom? What is their idea of friendship? What is their idea of how to resolve conflict? So you can work with really great themes. So this idea of giving voice is it's like we all have a different way of playing. And so we can hear what that way of playing is. So I guess this is a young adult play. Again, this is in theater. So this was an IB theater class in Budapest, and all of these students studied individual people, famous people. They learned their style of movement. They learned how they talk. They memorized a speech, and they presented it in character. And I saw students really transform with this exercise. They gained confidence. They learned how to step into the shoes of someone else. It was really powerful. I've seen the similar exercise done with fifth graders where they study people in history. And then recently I'm tutoring a student who is in third grade, and she is doing a report about a bird, and she decided that she wanted to be the bird, and she is presenting herself as a barn swallow, and she says, "Hi, I'm a barn swallow, but you can call me Barney." And she leads, so this idea of stepping into other characters, I think builds empathy, is also a form of play. This is a long text, and it is an example of a ninth grade student who ended a semester of drama and giving a reflection. And I included it as an image so you can really see this was something she typed up at the time and sent in, and I put it as an image here. This picture on the left is of boys who were working on manga cards to Japan. So these two boys were actually really interested in manga, and connecting them with another culture was really cool. But so this other idea I wanted to share with you is this fostering self-reflection and mindfulness. If you see towards the top, I'm going to read this part. It says, "In the beginning of the year, I would remember the disrespectful boys that always talked during the class. But then at the end of the year, they were very silent and serious. And I know that it wasn't just because they should have listened, but it was more because they wanted to. They enjoyed the year so much that they were thankful. And by the way, they showed their respect of being better students and listeners." You can keep reading down if you can, but I'm going to go to the very end. "By the end, I can proudly say that this year was the most successful theater year I've experienced, and the results have unlocked my soul." You know, in education, we're not really comfortable talking about this unlocking the soul, but when we think of creativity and play, I think it actually does that. Okay, so this is an 8-year-old boy who was the football player, and he made this puppet in my art class in Oregon. And so what I found in making puppets with middle school students is that many of them had problems with pronunciation. I had many students who were joining into the community and were learning English for the first time, so ESL students, and they were so shy to speak in front of their peers, but when they became a puppet and they had the puppet in a puppet stage, they would talk. And so, yeah, just so powerful. Again, this idea that big kids like to play too. Okay, I have a couple more slides, I think. So this is a slide in Zambia, again, with puppets. These are middle school students. So I think these were in 7th grade, maybe 6th grade at the time. They all made their own puppets. We made that puppet theater out of PVC pipe and fabric. But you can just see it wasn't my idea that they get inside the theater. It was their idea. So again, they can move about in this space if we also have a sense of safety. In the end, we visited a local orphanage and we presented puppets at the orphanage as well. So I guess I keep saying this over and over again, that this is not just for young children, fostering play and creativity. I really hope that Visionary Ed is a place where we're playing as adults across the world. We're sharing ideas. We feel like we're in a safe place to share our ideas. And I'll end my little pieces of sharing on this topic with this slide, and we'll talk a little bit, and then Ashley will finish. So these 2 pictures here were taken in 1998. I think they were actually taken with a film camera at the time, and I scanned it even. That's how long ago it was, before cell phones. Can you imagine? And so in this school that I had started, there was a play box, there was a storage room. And with instruments, we were collecting from schools that were donating items to our school. And these 2 boys, the big boys, are 5th graders. And they had gotten these sticks, which were to be musical instrument and pattern making. And the boy on the left has a bucket on his head. And the boy on the right has, it's a Crusaders plastic shield that you would give to a 3- and 4-year-old. Okay, so it doesn't fit. But these 2 boys during recess got into these boxes. And in the first few days, the school was housed in the basement of the church. So we did not have a playground. We did not have PE. We had to go to a school for PE. We didn't have the typical middle school environment, and they didn't know how to really adjust to it. And I think there is a transition period between allowing them to play and what is play. So this is also a multi-age group. So if you look at the picture down below, these are 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders all together playing. And this was a small community, so it was a safe place to do that. So what I'd love for us to talk about right now, and I think I will stop sharing my screen and then we will jump back in. We'll try it that way. What is the simplest thing we can do to embed creativity in our classroom? And I'll start with an example. So one of the simplest things we can do, if we pass out paper, non-lined paper, different colored paper, and we allow students to use it horizontally or vertically. So yes, there are going to be times when they have to put their name at the top of the paper, put the date, and they're going to have to be organized in an organized way. But just allowing students the choice to put their paper this way or this way, to me, it's a game changer. Because you're actually saying in the classroom, there are times there's a place for you and you can start to have preferences. Okay, so if there's any thoughts you have about what I would say, the presentation that I've just shared, I brought up a lot of different things for us to talk about and consider, and we'll save that for the end after Ashley finishes. Welcome, Miguel. I just finished sharing some slides, and how we're structuring our talk today is right now we're going to break into a discussion. If you can introduce yourself, I think, well, I think everybody knows everybody here. So what we're brainstorming is a list, and I'm wondering, Christina, if we have a really great list, if you could just kind of take notes of it for me. What I was suggesting is when we pass out paper, try to have different colors and really encourage students to intentionally choose the direction they want their paper to go. Okay, the simplest, cheapest thing.
Can I share
Okay.
my experience?
Yes, please, Christina.
I have to say that I work with adolescents and adults, and the simple thing that I've done that created an extraordinary result was I teach philosophy, so it's a discipline that I need to play. Is to teach them an author, the theory of an author, and they have to transform that theory into a song. And so most of them does it with the type of music they like more. So for instance, I see in some years it's hip hop, and they bring their instruments, they in fact are so involved in that everybody in the class enjoys with one with another. So it's a simple thing, and for me, it's always results.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Jeanette, would you like to share the simplest way to bring creativity in your classroom? Oh, Jeanette, your sound is off.
Okay. So in my workshops, I like to bring in a lot of movement. And probably one of the most dynamic play opportunities that I've ever experienced, especially in China, because this is where people don't play. Their childhood is, just regimentation. And when you go to their schools, they're all in the desks, just lined up, listening to the teacher all day. This is still happening in China, big time. Although, I think it's probably happening in a lot of places in the world. But I was privileged to be in China to do this workshop and to review what we had learned. I created a relay, and we had about 80 people, and we had different teams of people. And of course, there was going to be the winning group, right? Let's see who gets done first with stating a concept that you feel you learned in this class. And it can only be said once, it cannot be repeated. That means you have to listen to your other people in your group. So they were all in these kind of rows, because we were going to pass the baton. Well, the music played and everybody began. The women literally took off their high heel shoes.
Thanks, Jeanette. What Ashley's going to be talking about games and using games for play.
Okay.
So thank you. Ashley, do you have anything to share? The simplest thing that you can do to bring creativity and play into your classroom? I know you're going to talk in a little bit.
I'm going to talk a little bit about just being open-minded and just not having constraints on the activities, and letting the students just to explore. In the classroom, it's really difficult. You got things to do all the time, but just being able to just open up some time for students to be creative with whatever materials are presented with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Chitra, would you mind sharing with us?
Sure. I would just like to share, just like you spoke about, getting children to just choose their own topics. So while teaching English, I would use this tic-tac-toe type of template, where, I would fill in 9 activities or 9 writing prompts, or even like, the setting, the character, and the, maybe a problem, and just letting the children choose, and or even if you put in activities and just say, okay, you can do, a diagonal, just to complete the tic-tac-toe, or a horizontal, any 3 out of the 9. That itself kind of gives them that ownership, or gets them all excited that, we got to choose what we wanted to do. And I think that kind of just opens their mind to doing the writing piece, because sometimes, children are really reluctant to write. So when we give them that choice, like you said, of course, it kind of just opens their minds as well, that, you give them one step and then they take 2 steps. So yeah, the tic-tac-toe works really well, and it goes into all types of subjects, like let it be English or science or even math, so that template kind of gets them excited as well. So
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's nice hearing your voice in this platform with us together.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And so Rashmi, would you like to share?
Definitely, Shannon. It is nice to hear you and also be part of this discussion. And it is nice to hear that we all are creative in our own ways and in our own perspectives in our classes. I teach high school, so it is limited to be creative, is what I was thinking. But as and when I hear you say that change of the paper, the way we are doing, so in that way, we are doing a lot of things to be creative in our classes. So asking them to pause for a minute and think, and then focusing their thinking process. That itself, I feel, that gives them a different way of being in our class, being present in our class, not just physically, but be mentally prepared and be present in our class. So one activity in my biology class, what I did in a, when we were in the physical space, was a role play. So the concept which I used was little heavy concept of immunology, but to my it was a pleasant surprise to see how students by themselves got characters which came up, like antibodies, antigens, all of them became a character, and how they walked around, moved around, with the depth of the concept was also showcased in the role play. Along with that, there was fun, humor, a lot of things, like all your ATL skills had come into that, with a lot of collaboration, communication, social skills. All those things were, I can say it was packed in that role play. I'm thinking that in a different way when you are talking right now. For me, it was just an activity and the activity was done. But now, when you said, how can your class be creative? So I'm just going back to that particular activity and I'm just reflecting on it. So every
Wonderful.
little thing we do is becoming creative in class.
Exactly. It becomes a space where students know, that they can understand things in a conceptual way. It's a free space to explore, right? It's not just all directed by the teacher. So there's a place for them to participate. So Miguel, I don't know, I see your photo. Did you want to add to this conversation? And then I also see a Maxine Jones. So if either one of you want to add to this conversation, what we're talking about is the simplest way we can add creativity to our classroom.
Just a small piece on that. I'm not in the best setting. That's why I've taken my cameras off.
Okay.
It's still quite busy in the Barker household. So I think you remember me doing a session called Relinquishing Instructor Power.
Yes.
Rest in peace. And I think that creativity comes as we take away that role that teachers are maybe, saying that they want to play, which is to be in charge. So the more we look at relinquishing that power and transferring that power to students, that's when that creativity happens. That's when that learning happens. So, from my experience, I just remember that the lessons that I've had, the ones that I remember the most are the ones that I did the least. in terms of being in front of, but being more of a listener, you know, being more of a listener. And I think that will come out in the idea of playing. And I'm going to share something. I know I didn't originate this thought. I heard it and I just don't know who to ascribe it to, but it has stayed with me. And it says that, you know, the stance that we have to take as educators, we have to get rid of the stance that says we're teaching when we're talking and they're listening when they're learning. And the stance we need to take is that what if they're learning when they're talking and we're teaching when we're listening? And I think that is where we need to think about, you know, play and what role we play when they are playing.
Beautiful, Miguel. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Is Maxine Jones wanting to talk with us?
Thank you for having me. I am not prepared as well, so please excuse my video, etc. And I joined late, but what comes to mind, what's one of the things that I do when I'm having a presentation is to try to tell stories. Children remember stories, right? So it's good to incorporate stories in the classroom. I had an experience just 2 weeks ago where it was during National Reading Week here in Jamaica, and I went to read for a group of 3-year-olds. My daughter was in that group. And 1 week after the reading, I saw a pencil in her bag and I didn't remember giving her the pencil. So I questioned her, where did you get this pencil? And she said, Mom, you gave me the pencil. And I still wasn't sure. So I'm questioning her, why did I give you? And she said, it's a winning pencil, Mommy. I answered the question and you gave me the pencil. And then when I continued questioning her, she could tell me the title of the story. She could tell me the question that I asked. She could tell me the answer. And that was 1 week ago, and she can still tell you about the stories. So stories do a lot for children. And I think that it's very good to incorporate stories in our classes.
Absolutely, Maxine. Thank you so much for helping us all remember that. It's really true. And sometimes, you know, there's a fine line between sharing a personal story and sharing other stories. I'm thinking one favorite story I like to tell is about the starfish, the little boy who's picking up the starfish on the beach and he's throwing them into the sea. And an old man comes along and he says, so what are you doing? And the little boy says, I'm picking up starfish and throwing them into the sea. And he says, well, don't you know that's not going to be effective? Look at the whole beach. It's covered with starfish. And the little boy says, he picks it up and he throws it in. He said, it helped that one.
Wow.
And so I absolutely believe in the power of telling stories. And as a teacher, I try to collect them, just like I, you know, just did this one just now. And it makes a really, thank you for, can you believe that I forgot to add that in our slide? And maybe Ashley's picked it up, but I just thank you for helping me remember that, Maxine. There was actually at the beginning, I wanted to even originally, when I knew we were going to do this session today, I was going to tell a story. But I was going to tell a personal story, how I make it non-personal. So there was this little boy who was little, he was 5 years old, and he had to walk himself to kindergarten. And it was in fall, and it was in Massachusetts, and the leaves were just a beautiful color. And he was really quite scared to go to kindergarten and very shy, and went to kindergarten. And every day for about 3 months, he stood at the back of the classroom, and the teachers allowed him to stand at the back of the classroom. And finally, one day, a teacher came up and said, you've been standing at the back of the classroom. Would you like to come into it's a lab kindergarten. Would you like to come in? And the teacher said, well, you can paint on an easel. And the little boy said, well, what is that? And the teacher showed the little boy 3 easels with paints. And then for the next 3 months, the little boy, all he did was go to school and paint on the easels. He painted all of his childhood memories. He painted a big elephant. He painted a big giraffe. He painted a dancer that he had seen on an elephant. And then when he was all finished, the teacher said, "My goodness, you made these huge life-size animals. What would you like to do with them?" And the little boy said, "I'd like to make a circus." And then the teacher said, "Well, why don't you make a circus with the people in your class?" And the little boy, who hadn't talked for months, had a little lisp, and who had experienced a lot of early childhood trauma, even thinking that he had multiple sclerosis, started talking to other children in the class. And in the end of the school year, at the end of kindergarten, he made a little circus and a lot of new friends. And that's my favorite story about how I became a teacher, because I was that little boy. And I lived in Massachusetts and took myself to kindergarten and went through all those things. But I had teachers who allowed, so another, in addition to the storytelling and the encouraging of the allowing of movement, the giving of choice, another aspect, I think, is being patient. And I think these teachers who worked with me were incredibly patient. And at the time, in the 1970s, the theme of project-based learning and using the arts to heal early childhood trauma was actually a pedagogy that was being explored. And I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time and experience that. And I have to say, it changed my life, and it's the reason I became a teacher. So that's a story I tell in a more lengthy time, but to really kind of give an impression of the power of patience as a teacher, and the using of arts as a tool to heal the soul, and also for psychological healing. So I hope you like that story as well. Thank you again, Maxine. You were just, thank you. So now let me share my screen again, and Ashley's going to talk a little bit.
Oh, so just kind of now talking about some of the little or preschool and first, second graders. Maria Montessori, she says, play is the work of the child. And that's something that's important to remember, that play comes in all different forms. And we've talked a lot about different examples of play throughout our life. But really, play is anything a child chooses to do. And it's our job as the adult and as the educator to foster the child's curiosity and creativity through the activities they're choosing. So I used my son as an example. There's 4 different types of play right now that he's doing. And there's the traditional just playing with blocks, but there's the creativity of him pretending to cook, and him exploring nature through looking at a stump and the circles in the log, and looking for bugs, and then gardening. And so play comes in all different forms, and it's important to remember through childhood, and when they're little too. It's not just the toys, but just letting them kind of show you what they want to do. And another activity that he enjoys is washing dishes. And to me, that's a chore, but to him, that's something that, it's play for him. And so just remembering, play isn't one way. It's whatever the child, the student chooses to do. If you want to go next one. So the IB has play in 3 different groups. There's the free play, guided play, games, and direct. And I think the free play, it's all child-led, and that's really easy in their early years. But it's a lot difficult as the great student gets older. But you guys showed great examples of fostering free play through different ways. Through sorry. Speaking of kids.
Speaking of.
Hi. Daddy. Yeah, go play with Daddy. Okay, go play with Daddy. I'm almost done. Sorry. There he goes. But one thing with games, and I feel like that's really something that can be done within the classroom. And I was thinking of different ways that within the of course he chooses.
This is the game of going through the house.
He's staying out this whole time, and then he knows. Sorry. Let me try to get focused again. So I was looking at the different types of play and thinking about how it could be used within the classroom. And one thing that I was thinking about was the games and how it can be used, especially when you're getting into elementary, middle, and high school, where teachers have so much to do. And I feel like games could be a really great way of, it's scaffolded within your module, within the theme. And it's, even though the teacher is more direct, it's play, gives the students a lot of creativity. And one thing that I kept thinking about with how to use play with older kids is as a summative, your summative evaluation assessment of having kids design a game and then being able to play each other's game. And therefore you can incorporate the creativity, the play, but also being able to keep it on topic, which is very important.
Ashley, I work with a 5th grade student in New Jersey right now who is teaching me how to use Google Slides in a way that you can build academic games. Maybe other teachers are aware of this, and this is what they're doing in 5th grade, where they're individual, each of them are making their own games, but they're digital games even.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's really amazing. So, and there is such interest and curiosity and passion in this game making in the digital world. Yeah.
If I can say, I use that strategy also in my classes. And sometimes I challenge them to do a new game based on a classic game. Let's say chess. So stay on the topic, but do a chess board with the topic. And it's amazing because they can do it. Mm-hmm. And stay on the topic that we were teaching. So yeah, games have a lot of potential.
Yeah. And also, when you talk, I don't know, I always had to work with how do I find ways to help manage a creative classroom. And one of the ways I found in this game was building teams and giving points for things. So one idea in a language arts class was, it's a great day when. And so let's spend a 5-minute warm up where each person in the team finishes the sentence, it's a great day when, it's a great day when. And so it's a great day when my smallest jeans fit. It's a great day when I get to swim in the sea and it's clear and it's not windy. It's a great day when my 2-year-old doesn't take my toothbrush and I have a presentation, and you get more and more creative with your responses, and then you give points based on the creativity. And as a teacher, I got to be the judge who would award the points, but keeping, and you can do this in any subject where you break the group into teams, and you decide, the students can decide too, what is the criteria for the points, but then the teams earn points. So you're doing a different type of game. It's a collaborative game, but the point system and the little bit of competition between teams makes it so that they're able to collaborate productively, and you don't have the students who kind of stick out and slow things down happen. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, one thing here. Just like we're talking about guided play, it was just reminding me of, when I would do a novel study, bringing in literature circles. So it's almost like adult designed and scaffolded, but it's child-led, So, you give everyone a role in that circle of 4 or 5 children, but it's them who kind of carry the whole discussion and the group forward, and you give them that guided, constraints, but how they would like to present it to their group and how they lead their group. And there's a manager and there's a vocabulary word detector, and so they have different roles to play, and they kind of it helps a lot with comprehension and understanding the text in a much deeper way. So I've seen literature circles, like I've used it even for a grade 1 child and even a grade 5 student, a group of students, and it's wonderful because actually the teacher doesn't even need to talk for like even a second, and the whole thing is done, for you. So just looking at the guided play, I felt that was a connect.
Great example. I love literature circles and teaching students this. They learn so much from each other, and there's a sense of responsibility to be prepared to that group. I need to read my homework and be prepared. And thank you for sharing that. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So through our discussions, we've really hit like 4 different types of play, and used in all different ways in different age groups. And it shows that when as an educator, you can kind of be like, well, how can you add play into the classroom? We got so many topics that we need to discuss. They have to learn, be prepared for their exams. But through this great discussion so far, we've hit the different types of play, and you guys it's being used in the classroom. And it's not that, when you think about it, it's not that difficult to add a little bit of play into the lessons. And in the next screen, it talk about how important it is for learning, play-based learning, for the well-being of students. Play isn't just fun, but it develops and nurtures our fundamental knowledge and skills. We learn how to ask insightful questions. We're able to identify goals and aspirations and have determination to achieve them, and it improves the students' well-being, develops social, emotional, physical, and mental well-being. So it's not just fun. It's not just going out and playing games or having puppet shows, and which is all great. There's more to it than just play, and learning. And these are just some of the benefits that it has on the students. And so it's something to remember, that there's a lot goes into behind the scenes of play.
Well, making play, making play professional, right? I loved the first time I heard Google using ping pong tables in their business. I wanted to have a party myself, because it was like, okay, professional world is modeling play. And I think that we need more and more of those models from the business world saying, play is our work. I love that Montessori quote, play is our work. Really playing in the kitchen, cooking things, investigating the science. Play is our work. It really is. And how it looks in the classroom. You know, another, I guess, challenge is looking at the individual, that when the individual has a choice and has a voice, and you're managing a classroom of 25 individuals. And then we know we have learning challenge as well. But I think also sometimes buddying older children with younger children. Children, I know for one student I had was autistic, and the only thing he was interested in was fishing. And so we turned everything into fishing. And I had an older student write a math problem about fishing for him. So I think that multi-age environment also lends itself to play, and that doesn't really happen that often in schools. If we had Rebecca with us, I know she worked in Alaska in kind of a multi-age classroom setting. Has anyone else worked in a multi-age classroom setting?
I have with special education, kindergarten through 5th grade, all in one classroom.
And you didn't like it, did you, Ashley?
No, there's definitely challenges in itself. One great thing though is it helps with self-esteem. When you have an older student that has a lower self-esteem, is really struggling, and being able to have them pair with a younger student really helps bring up their self-esteem, to help them as they're able to teach the younger student and build their confidence up.
Well, this is interesting, Ashley, because Ashley has been working in special education in her past career. And this is a book that I've been listening to on Audible, that I've been listening to for about a year. It's called What Has Happened to You? And it's conversations with Bruce Perry, Dr. Bruce Perry, and Oprah Winfrey. And it is the deepest book that I have listened to about the effect trauma in early childhood has. Basically, we can get over war, we can get over starvation, we can get over death, we can get over so many things later in life. Even then, it can be challenging. But when we have experienced trauma as a child, it really can manifest itself into serious psychological disorders, into attention deficit, into a lot of different, into learning challenges. And it depends on the child. But there's this idea of regulating. And I think play is, when we allow play, it can be regulating. So this idea of regulating is, so a child with trauma can either be acting out or can be really closed within. They are in a stressed state in their mind and then in their body. Their breathing can be different. They don't trust people. And I have one student that I work with who is in 4th grade, and he's reading at about 1st grade level. And he has a game addiction. And I have another student who had, actually, I'm thinking of another student who had a seizure. She had like 3 seizures in a year in her 1st grade. She was pulled out of school. And in that, her memory is not like it used to be. And when I first worked with her online, we started drawing on the screen. I turned on some nice music and we just started drawing pictures on the screen. And then almost every time in our session, I allow a little bit of time for looks like doing nothing, just doodling or chatting or listening to music. But what I've realized that I'm doing intuitively is I'm helping her relax. And that I'm doing that by regulating. So, you know, if we're working with students with difficulties, the idea of walking, dancing, biking, basketball, these things can help you regulate those children that have difficulties. If I wish that this book could be in every teacher's library and be a requirement for teacher education. It is an amazing book. And I've started to believe that I think most of our world is composed of broken humans, and that our work as teachers is really about not only teaching, but healing people so that they can work together in teams, so that they can learn. So we have, let's see, how much do we have some time? I'm going to stop sharing. And Ashley, okay, yeah, so we're at 3:30, we're exactly now. We can finish now, or we can talk for about 5 more minutes. I think that's the most. Do we have any closing thoughts that anyone would like to share?
Can I share a quote?
Yes.
So I have this quote from Dr. Stuart Brown. He wrote a book called Play, and he says, play shapes the brain, opens imagination, and invigorates the soul. Mm. And I also would like to say that play should be in our life from the beginning till the end. It's what sustains our search for purpose of life. And I see that in my students, when they're connected with their creative side, they learn better, they have better results, and more, they transform themselves in something more elevated, I would say.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you. I feel so privileged to be with all of you today, and because I know that we all have this common thread. Sometimes I think Visionary Ed is about passionate educators who really want to be of service in the world, but I think maybe we all just really want to play. So this is adult play. It's my highest form of adult play, is to be with you and to talk about education. And so thank you everyone for joining today, and we hope that you'll be interested in joining us again.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.